Everything's digital now, eh?
Yeah, it's a lot easier.
No more paperwork.
All right. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Very good to have you all again, alhamdulillah, at the second of the series, or the second part of the series. Last week we had Sheikh Abu Adnan, and Sheikh Abu Adnan spoke to us about his journey and his path from Sharia into law, and how the two come together, and how we can actually bring the two and then help and serve and take back to the Muslim community. And today with us is Brother Khalil Hafza, and we'll be having a similar journey, inshallah, with Brother Khalil, about how he went from his high school into engineering, and where that has taken him for him to arrive where he is today. And we'll discuss that as we go along, inshallah. So thank you very much for attending. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you, and inshallah everyone here benefits from your journey as much as you benefited, if not more. So the first thing, just before we go into the questions, could you please give us a bit of context about your journey, how you ended up in Australia? Maybe you were born here or you migrated, and what that was like for you growing up, particularly given that a lot of them are at young ages. They may be able to relate to some of those.
Yes, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Allah Jazakum Khair. This is a great initiative. It's always great to see these types of associations, really investing in the youth and investing in our community. So it's absolutely brilliant. So congratulations to yourself and to the organisation. I want to do a little exercise, because I'm actually quite excited about the average age in this room. We have a lot of young, looks like aspiring leaders in our community. And it's brilliant to see, because I reckon if I was to guess, it'd be less than 15, 14, maybe 13. So I'm going to do a show of hands, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Because I just love to understand who's in the audience. Put your hand up if you're 10 years or under. Put your hand up if you're between 10 and 12. Don't be shy. Put your hand up. We've got 1, 2. Put your hand up if you're between 12 and 15. All right, so that looks like to me like that's the majority, yeah, 12 to 15. So that's brilliant. The fact that you guys are actually even here and taking your time out to listen to someone like me is absolutely brilliant. I know between 12 and 15, I was in the backyard with a fence post and the auto bin playing cricket. So congratulations, guys, and you should all give yourselves a pat on the back, and I think you guys are set for an awesome future. I think for me, Riyadh, I was born in Australia.
Okay.
So a lot of people say you're one of the fortunate or privileged ones, but it is a great country that we live in. And my dad came out here in 1970, and they were married here, and I was born in 1977. I'm the second of 5 children. We were all born here, all educated in the public system, and I was actually raised just down the road. We travelled a bit between the ages of when I was born to the age of 6 or 7, and then when I was 7, we settled in Casula, and have been in Casula since. So I went to Casula Public School. Funny, but I started at Campbelltown East Public School in kindergarten. I did a year there, then I did a year at Lakemba.
Okay.
I think every Lebanese Muslim has to do a year or so in Lakemba. It's part of their induction into society. And then we moved out to Casula. Dad decided to bring the family out to Casula when I was 7, and have been here since. Went to Casula Primary, then went to Casula High School. And if you said to me when I was in year 7 or year 8 or year 9 or 10, maybe where some of you guys are at the moment, or most of you guys are, I would have said I was going to be an athlete.
Okay, interesting.
That was my passion, athletics and rugby league, but more so athletics. I was a sprinter. So that was going to be my passion, and in my mind, I was always going to be an Olympic sprinter until Dad decided in year 10 that education was more important, and I had to do my HSC, year 11 and 12, and give sport a break. So I did that, and through those 2 years, I played a year of rugby league. So I got that out of the system. I even played a year of rugby league when I went into university. But in about year 11 or 12, probably year 12, when I was doing my HSC, my father said, you know, what do you want? Or he didn't actually say anything. In my mind, I was going to be an economist.
Okay.
So I wanted to study commerce, and I wanted to study the economy. I loved economics at school. I loved commerce at school. I didn't do business studies at the time. It wasn't very popular, as popular as it is now. But for me, that's what I wanted to be. So I did my HSC. You know how you do your university preferences.
Yeah.
And I had economics as number one. And then my dad's asking me, so what are you going to? In my dad's mind, I was definitely going to university. It was just a matter of what I was going to study. And he said, what are you going to study? I said, economics. He said, no, you're not. You're going to be an engineer. And I said, Dad, what's engineering?
Yeah.
You know, and so we had a conversation that I'm sure we'll get to in a minute, and ended up at university in an engineering degree.
Okay.
So I think that's a bit of context. So similar to you guys, who put your hand up if you were born here? Yeah, so similar to you guys, same journey, born here. I think I recognise one of the faces in the crowd who's a good sprinter. I see him sometimes at Little Athletics when I used to take my kids. I did Little Athletics as well at Liverpool, but different club, not that one. But yeah, so I think we're all on a similar journey, and I don't know how many of you are in public schools, how many of you are in Islamic schools, which is something that wasn't around when I was going through school, which I wish it was, because we obviously had to deal with all of the trials and tribulations and the awkward questions around Christmas and Easter, and you know, and when Brother John came in to do religious studies, and he was sitting there telling me about the Holy Spirit, and I was there talking to him about Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam. But yeah, so we're all on a similar journey, and I think I can relate definitely to where you guys are at the moment, and in time you guys will be able to relate to where I am today.
Inshallah. Awesome. That gives a lot of perspective, especially perhaps the part about your dad telling you what you're going to do at university. So that's the first one that's the first question I want to go into. So I wanted to ask, what were your motivations? Now we know your dad played a significant role in that. Could you expand on your dad's role, and then what was your reaction? And then perhaps for the younger ones here whose parents play a huge role in what they're going to do afterwards, inshallah, how to interact with their parents in a way that keeps the relationship good, but at the same time, you know, both parties end up with a good beneficial outcome.
Yeah. Look, at the time, I was obviously 18 years old, 17 years old. I have the luxury now of being 45 and a parent of 5 myself, a father of 5 myself. So I get it now. I didn't get it at the time when Dad said to me, you had to be an engineer, and I had my heart set on being an economist and working on the stock exchange as a stockbroker. Yeah. That's what I thought. I thought that was the bomb, and that's what I was going to do. But Dad and your parents, guys, they always have their children's best interests at heart. Sometimes it comes out the wrong way, but the amount of love, the unconditional love that they have for their children, and the love that your parents would have for you, you'll only experience once you have your own kids. It's hard to understand otherwise. So at the time, I just chose a path of, he's my dad, I'm his son, and he's only going to advise me what's right and what's wrong. So I'm going to listen to what my father says. And I was lucky because my dad had a good vision. And he was telling me that if you become an engineer, ultimately you can work for a massive design firm that designed the Harbour Bridge. You know, a world landmark bridge that people come from around the world to visit, and one day you could be an engineer that designs something similar, and leave your legacy in this world forever. Or you could be an engineer who has his own firm and design for other people. You can be an engineer that goes into construction, because we had a family friend who was an engineer at the time and was doing that.
Okay.
So Dad gave me all of these things, and in my mind, I was agreeing. My heart was not there, but I was agreeing. And ultimately, I changed my preferences to engineering. And at the time, I just thought engineering was really, concrete.
Okay.
I thought it was concrete, steel, timber. That's what I thought engineering was when I decided to go into engineering, because I had never studied engineering in careers at school. Like, I never spoke to our careers advisor about engineering. I never spoke to friends or family about engineering. I just thought it was concrete. And in our family, we had one or two engineers that were a lot older than me, and all I knew was they were designing house slabs, and they were designing footings, and that type of stuff, and driveways. So that's what I thought engineering was, So at the time when I decided to go into engineering, I thought I'm going to become an engineer. I'll do concrete structures, and that's what was going to happen. It wasn't until I started engineering in the first year, and more so in the second and third year, that I understood that engineering actually has a pivotal and very important role in humanity and in society and in the way the world works. Because imagine a world without a road system, or imagine a world without a sewer system. How unhealthy would we all be?
Very.
Right? There are countries in the world at the moment that don't have sewer systems, and all you need to do is go out and have a look at the state or the plight of the people in those countries, and you'll start to understand how important and how fundamental engineering is just to hygiene. Imagine what we would do with every time it rained if we did not have a stormwater system. We'd be flooded at least once a month, especially if you lived in Australia, right? So it wasn't until then, like understanding the earth and the geology of the earth, the composition of the earth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, how many layers it has right down to its core. Understanding more about gravity and the impact of gravity on force and mass. So it wasn't until the second and third year that I really started to appreciate the field that I was in and the impact that I could have on society, the impact I could have on humanity, and the impact I could have on the world through an engineering pathway. Okay. So my perspective changed from the time I entered university as an engineer, because it was my father's wish, and I convinced myself that my father knew what he was talking about. And to the second and third year, until I realised, wow, this thing's massive. You could be a soil engineer, you can be a hydraulic engineer, you could be a civil engineer, you could be a structural engineer, you can be an electronic engineer, you can be a computer engineer, you can be a biomedical engineer, you can be an aeronautical engineer, create aeroplanes, create bombs, diffuse bombs. There's so many things that you can do in engineering. It's so, the spectrum is massive. So anything that you are excited about, there's always an engineering pathway to get you there.
Beautiful. I think it really helps for everyone here to understand the background that parents come from, which is, as you said, the unconditional love. So moving on, can you tell us more about your experience in university? So you mentioned how it transitioned slowly from when you actually started the field or the degree to when you finished. And can you also give us a perspective on your journey as an engineer in practice, as a professional engineer?
So in the engineering degree, I'm not sure if it's still rated, but at the time I went to university, it was the second or third hardest degree to complete. It was 4 years. In the last year, you had to do a thesis, so you had to pick an area of study. I studied soil erosion in the Holsworthy Army Barracks. So I did my thesis on soil erosion at the Holsworthy Army Barracks. So the impact of all of the army training on the earth and on the waterways, because there was creeks that were tributary to the Georges River. We all know the Georges River. There are creeks in the area around Holsworthy where the army trained. So I did my thesis there. So that was the 4th year. But in the 1st and 2nd and 3rd year, you do a level of math that, like if you guys at the moment might be doing general maths or advanced math, I could see some people laughing straight away as soon as I said math because it is a difficult subject. But you do, like if you did 3-unit math, for those of you who have finished school, if you did 3-unit math at school or 4-unit math at school, engineering math is even harder. Okay, it's another level again. And I remember we did engineering math 1, engineering math 2, then calculus 1, calculus 2, calculus 3, then ordinary differential equations. So it's just a mathathon, right? So it was very difficult for me. I was never the mathematician. I could do it when I applied myself, but it wasn't natural to me. I was more of a commerce, accounting, management, history, geography type person. So the math was a challenge, and the physics, and a little bit of chemistry. Yeah. Because in engineering, you have to understand the chemical or the composition of materials. Because in engineering, you use concrete, you need to understand how natural materials work, like the earth, like the rock, like clay, like sand. You need to understand how all of that works, how they all react to water or to heat or to wind. So we learned. So the chemistry part was also a challenge for me because I didn't do chemistry at school. I did physics poorly at school, and had I have known how much physics was involved actually in engineering, I probably would have worked harder in physics at school to make my life easier during university. But university life, I think is awesome. I mean, I have a son that's at university at the moment, and I feel like he's missing out because of this whole COVID stuff, that he can't be on campus. Missing out on some things, and probably great that he's missing out on others, on other things at university. But I think generally, university life is a great time in anyone's career or anyone's life where they can create friends, they can work with lecturers, people that are true academics that have spent their life in the study of their field. Like you might meet a water engineer that he spent their whole life understanding how water works. Why water flows the way it does. How do you create pressure in water to service a shower that is 100 meters in the air in a tall building? So you meet these people that have invested their life and their careers to become academics so that they can solve problems for society, for humans, for humanity. And I think that's an honourable thing to have spent your life doing. And having an opportunity just to rub shoulders with these types of people and to be in that environment is really rewarding.
Alhamdulillah. And a bit about your professional life as an engineer. The
professional side was very short for me as an engineer, because I knew early on that I wanted to have my own business.
Okay.
And I know you were telling me earlier that we're going to talk a bit about business, so I won't go into that now. But I knew early on in my life that whatever it is that I did, I wanted to have my own business. That was something that was ingrained in me. Not ingrained in me, but something that was natural to me growing up. And my father had his own businesses at different times in my life that I worked with him in. So I saw what that looked like. But while I was at uni, actually, I'll tell you this story.
Okay,
do we have time?
Yeah. We have till 9:30. So.
Oh no, we don't want to keep the guys here till 9:30.
No,
so I'll make it quick. So when I was in university, second year university, I had enough. The workload in semester 1 at Western Sydney University of Engineering, I had to do 9 subjects. Okay. Semester 2, I had to do 7 subjects. By the first semester, and I passed all of them, alhamdulillah. I did well in a couple that I enjoyed, right? The others were laborious, but I got there. Yeah. The first semester of second year, at the end of that first semester, so in the middle of the year, I said to my mother, because I wouldn't dare say this to my dad, I said to my mum, hey mum, I think I'm going to quit university and either change to another course and stay at university, or just become a tradie. I was going to become a formwork carpenter. And she said, look, you can't do that. And my mother and I, thank God, alhamdulillah, we had a good relationship, right? So she said, look, you've never done anything for me. Stick out one more semester. And at the end of second year, if you still feel the same way, then we'll talk about it with your dad then. I said, all right, deal. One semester is not a big time in someone's life to give up for their mother, to keep their mother happy, right? Yeah. Put your hand up if you like to keep your mum happy. Alhamdulillah, that's good.
Alhamdulillah.
You're teaching him well. So this guy really loves to keep his mum happy. He's still got his hand up. So I said to my mum, yes. And subhanAllah, why I'm giving you this story, right, is because I believe there are times in my life where I've gone out to make my parents happy. I've made Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala happy. And then in turn, He's made me happy.
Alhamdulillah.
Right? So at the time, I didn't know that that was going to happen.
Yeah.
So obviously the first decision I made was make my dad happy and do engineering.
Yep.
Then the second one was to make my mum happy and do this last semester in second year, which in my mind, I was out. But then we go into a subject called concrete structures. And the lecturer says, look, whoever comes first in this subject, we had a cohort of about 70, 80 students. I was in the middle. Never was coming first in anything, not even in the top 10, right? I was just in the middle.
Yep.
And the lecturer said, I'll never forget his name was Stefan Bernard. He said to me, he said to the whole class, he said, whoever comes first in this subject will get $500 as a gift from the Steel Reinforcement Institute of Australia. Then they get recognised in an awards night at the end of the year at the Sheraton on the Park, which at the time I didn't even, like I'd only been to the city a couple of times when I was competing in events. And at that night, you take your parents, and if you have a girlfriend, you take your girlfriend, which I obviously didn't have a girlfriend. But if you're engaged, you could take if you're married, whatever, right? Because students were anywhere between the ages of 18 to 30 or 35.
Oh, wow.
There was a range of students at the university. So I nudged my mate Matthew, and who I'd gone through school with, and we both did engineering together. I said, hey Matt, I'm going to come first in this subject because I need the $500. He said, what do you need the $500 for? I said, I want to paint my car because I had a $2,000 rust bucket. It was a Toyota Corona, right? Yeah. And I needed to paint my car, and I thought I could change the cassette player because we never had CD. Or CD was just starting back then. And he goes, you're not going to get it. Like, be serious. He called me a few names that I'm not going to repeat today. But he said, mate, be serious. You're not going to come first. Like, we're basically scraping a pass. We're getting a few credits here and there, but you're not going to come first. I said, you watch me. Anyway, so I applied myself. And we get to the end of second semester, year 2. We go on holidays.
Yep.
Then during the holidays, I get my results and I come first. Right? So we go back with the same lecturer, semester 1, year 3 now, because now in my mind, I've got the $500. Yeah. I'm going to do this. I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish this thing out, right? We go back week 1 of year 3, semester 1, and we're doing timber structures. Okay. Now, same professor, Stefan Bernard. So he said Khalil, and there's another guy named Tamri who came second, but he was coming first since year 1 all the time. He says, Khalil and Tamri, we've got a call from a company named VSL. And our university, sorry to sidetrack a bit, just so I can give you the full picture here, so you can understand what's possible for you guys, right? If you apply yourself and if you listen to your parents. The university changed so that you could still do engineering full time between 5 and 9 p.m. every night. Okay. So you could arrive at university at 5 and finish at 9 and all day Friday. Okay. Right? That was in 3rd year and 4th year. And still finish with a full-time load at the end of year 4. So anyway, so that was starting to happen. So we were in this week 1, and then Stefan Bernard said, VSL is a post-tensioning company. They're an engineering company. They do a form of reinforcement in concrete structures. It's not the conventional reinforcement, but it's a type of reinforcement. And they're looking for 2 young engineers to be project administrators in their business. So they've reached out to all the universities, Sydney, New South, Western Sydney, Wollongong, Newcastle, UTS. They've all got the engineering faculties. They want the top 2 students in every university, and they're going to interview them, if you're willing, and they're going to employ someone. So guess who gets the call up? Me, because I came first in concrete structures. Right? So I applied myself there, got first in concrete structures. Sorry, listen to Dad first, then Mum. Came first in concrete structures. Now I'm sitting in this lecture, and the university guy says, yeah, ring this company, gives me the card. Ring them up, 3 weeks later I get the job. So I interview, and we still haven't had the recognition dinner from the Steel Reinforcement Institute for the award that I won. That was going to happen in the following year, in the first half. Okay. So I go to the interview, this is like February, I get the job against 12 other candidates because in the first 2 years of university, in my university holidays, I went and did formwork with my brother-in-law.
Okay.
I actually used to go do formwork. So I used to learn. I learned how to read engineering plans. So that was what got me the job, because I said I can read engineering plans, and no other student could.
Oh.
And they said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah." And I went and got one in the interview, and they said, "What's that?" I said, "That's a column." They said, "What's that?" I said, "That's a beam." They said, "What's that?" I said, "That's a steel reinforcement bar." It's all right. Anyway, on the way home, I didn't have a mobile, obviously. On the way home, they waited for me to get home because it was in Hornsby. And I got home, they rang me and they said, "You've got the job." Anyway, so that was my first professional job at VSL, and I still had 2 years of university to go. So I would wake up every morning at Fajr. I'd get to Hornsby by about 7:30 a.m. I'd finish at Hornsby at 4 p.m. and I'd drive to university at 5 p.m.
Yep.
Sit in my lecture to 9 p.m. at Penrith. So I drive from Hornsby to Penrith, and then from Penrith I drive home to Casula, and then in between there do some study. And on Fridays, I started having Fridays off at VSL, and then worked out that I actually enjoyed working a lot more than university. So then I started working all day Friday and then catching up from notes from my friends on the weekend on Friday, so that I could work a full week. And mind you, the money that I was getting at the time was barely enough to pay for the fuel to do that circuit every day. It was like 2.5 hours worth of driving every day, you know. So I think that was my first go at professional work, or my professional career. And just so you know how versatile engineering is, I didn't actually start off as an engineer, because I still hadn't graduated as an engineer. I started off as a project administrator.
Okay.
Now what that means is, you basically do all the jobs that no one else wants to do, like photocopy drawings, you know, do material takeoffs, like work out how much material you need on the job, photocopy stuff, write out invoices, do all the filing, make sure we've got enough stationery in the office, you know, go out and get everyone's lunch and coffees. So all the stuff that everyone does not want to do, that was my job. But I was happy to do it, because that was the start of my professional career. And then I stayed at VSL for 3.5 years. So I stayed there. I did the first 2 years while I was finishing university, and then I did a 1.5 years as a graduate. Okay. And then from there, I moved out into a business where it was a family business. There was a kind of crossroads in my career then. I had to decide either to go work for a family member or go work for another company, because I had a job offer to go work for another company as a project manager, okay, not even as a design engineer. So in VSL, the 3.5 years that I was there, I did project administration, I did design engineering, and I did project engineering. So the engineering degree allowed me in the first 3.5 years of my professional career to do 3 different roles and get exposure into 3 different environments: an administration environment, a project engineering environment, and a design engineering environment. And in fact, I got my call up into the design engineering space the last year of university. I hadn't even graduated yet. And I was given that opportunity by VSL. So that was a bit about my induction into the professional world. And then I did another 2 years, 2.5 years as a project manager, and then started my own business.
Okay, alhamdulillah. We're going to get into the business part. We've mentioned it a few times. I'm pretty sure a lot of the people here are excited about it. But just before that, what are some considerations that someone who's looking to go into university and pursue engineering as a profession or as a degree, what are some considerations they should take into account?
I think some of the considerations is the great thing about engineering is it teaches you how to solve problems in a pragmatic fashion, step by step. So you become, as an engineer, a great problem solver. And on one hand, it teaches you that pragmatic approach, but on the other hand, it teaches you how to think outside the square and outside the box. So when you guys are thinking about a career choice, if you're someone that thinks, I'd love to be a problem solver, I'd love to be a creator by thinking outside of the box, how do I solve this problem coming from this angle rather than just tackling it head on or coming from that angle? I think engineering provides you with that opportunity. And if you have a look at career pathways for an engineer, there are so many. You don't just have to be, a lot of people believe that if I do engineering, I'm boxing myself into the design world. I'm going to end up designing. But that's not necessarily true. You could end up becoming a traffic engineer. You could end up becoming a project manager. You can end up becoming a project engineer on the project, like project based, right? You can end up becoming a construction manager. You can end up becoming a CEO of a business. A lot of CEO of businesses come from an engineering background because they have that ability to solve problems and to plan well. They're good planners. Because when you design, say you're designing a building, you got to start with understanding your environment and then understanding your foundation and then designing your footings, then designing your core and your structure and then adding all the bits on, you know?
Yeah.
So it gives you that opportunity to have a massive bandwidth of experience in your career. You don't just have to be boxed in.
Beautiful. So just off of that question, and this will be the last one, inshallah, for this segment. A lot of people go into engineering, or before they go in, they have the idea, because it gets circulated around a lot, that if you go into engineering, you're going to end up jobless. That there aren't actually, it's a very competitive field, it's oversaturated, there aren't enough jobs for the graduates coming out. From your experience, both as an engineer once upon a time, but also as a business owner, how correct is that, and what can someone do to actually mitigate, the oversaturation that's, if there is actually oversaturation in the market?
I think from my experience at the moment, graduate engineers are in high demand. I don't believe that engineers at the moment are struggling to find work, graduate engineers. I think the best advice I can give anyone in any field of study, engineering, medicine, accounting, whatever, any trade, is be at the top of your game all the time. Always be at the top of your game. Now, what does it mean being at the top of your game? It means something different to each one of us, because each person has different drivers and different motivators that get them to the top of their game. So if you're at the top of your game, then you're going to be sought after all the time, irrespective of what the market is doing. See, market forces change all the time. Right now, there is a shortage of everything. There is a shortage of engineers. There is a shortage of skilled trade. There's a shortage of doctors. Why? Because of COVID. We've been 2 years where immigration has been zilch. Professional immigration, migration, whatever you want to call it, trade. Everyone's been locked into their own countries. So at the moment, there is a massive shortage. You guys have a golden opportunity to in the next 5 to 10 years, because this isn't going to change overnight. Have a golden opportunity in engineering or in any other field, if you're at the top of your game, to be a sought after resource or a sought after asset for any business.
Okay. So basically, if you put in the effort, if you do your part, and if you do your best to actually excel, then chances are, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help, of course, that you will actually be able to find a job and find a career pathway in that profession.
Absolutely. With everything in life. Not just your career, everything you apply yourself to. Your relationships with your father, your mother, your siblings, your friends. If you apply yourself to your studies at school, at the mosque, at university, wherever you are in your life, sporting wise, whatever you're doing, if you apply yourself in that space and be at the top of your game, you will always be sought after by industry, by humans, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You'll always be sought after and guided through that process.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, so let's move on to the business part, which is now what a lot of people are actually really excited about. So you mentioned that from a very young age, that you realized that you didn't want to always, work for someone. You wanted to eventually have your own business. What are some of the things that motivated you to actually get to that level of thinking that, I'd like to have my own business one day, inshallah?
Look, at an early age, like when I was in that headspace at 17, 18, 19, 20, I would say between the ages of 18 and 21, even 22, my motivators were more about materialistic things.
Okay. So making money.
Making money. You know, I thought, you know what, if I have a business, I can make a lot of money because all the rich people in the world seem to be business owners. That's the association I made. How? Through just listening in the family environment. People that had money versus people that were well off versus people that were struggling. You know, like the struggling people always seem to be working for someone. So in the early part of my life, it was more about the materialistic. But it wasn't until we actually sat down around a table with my business partner and we started talking about why do we want to set up a business? What's our purpose? What's our vision? You know, what are our values? That we started to dissect what it actually meant and why it was important for us to have a business and what our motivators were. And even after we did that and we started our business, it was still more materialistic than actually solving a problem for society or for humanity. Because now, if you ask me now, what's your motivation to keep growing your business?
Yeah.
It's because I believe we go in a direction to solve a particular problem for society.
Yep.
And money just comes as a result of that.
Okay.
And whatever money comes as a result of that, this much, it's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides to give you.
Yep.
Right? So because the money side is just now is a consequence of where you're going, the direction that you're heading in. But you don't go in the direction to make money anymore.
Yeah.
So the advice I would give everyone in this room is when you're thinking about business, and if you want to create a business and start a business and be the founder of a business, think about a solution that you are going to provide for society, for humanity, something you can create that will solve a problem. And money will come. Obviously for good. Okay? Yeah. So we don't want to start a business on working out how to create something that's bad. Like we're not going to go out there and create a drug lab, right? Because that's not solving a problem for society, that's creating a problem for society. Yeah?
Yeah.
So think about, and I never had this advice when I was your age. Because the advice I was when I was your age was from the people that were in my circle of influence, were influencing me, was set up your own business, you'll be your own boss, and you make money. And what I've learned is, you're not your own boss, right? You're actually a leader. There's a massive difference. And we'll talk about that, hopefully, if the opportunity arises tonight. And it's not about making money. Because I could have gone through the corporate way, become a CEO of a company, be on a couple of $1 million per annum with, some bonus incentives and living the dream. There's a lot of, look at the CEO of Qantas, how much money does he earn? Or the CEO of the next big corporate. They earn in the millions. And you can go on that trajectory. But you're working for someone else's vision. And that's okay if that's what you choose to do. But for me, business or founding a business is bigger than that. And like I said at the start, no one advised me and no one was talking to me the way I'm talking to you guys now. And for me, it's all about being your own boss and making money. But the reality is your motivators around starting your own business need to be around what problem can I solve for society? So let me keep it simple. With Apple, what problem did they solve for society? They created a smartphone. Yeah, you can use it for bad, but you can use it for good. Connectivity, information at your fingertips, right? So when Steve Jobs was sitting in his garage working out, how to create the Apple machine, the Apple Mac, he was solving a problem for society, yeah?
Yeah.
The money came after. He went broke, I think, 2 times before he made it. So he wasn't doing it for money, because if he was doing it for money, he would have made money straight away, yeah? But he went broke a couple of times before he even made it to the big time. Tesla. So moving away from the conventional fuel into the car, causing harmful damage to the environment, to an electric car. If you read Elon Musk's story about his journey and how much money he made or didn't make and how many times he lost his money and went broke, but that wasn't his motivator. His motivator was to create something. Create something that was for good, not for bad. And that could be, let's not complicate it. You might want to create the best plumbing business or the best engineering business or the best construction business, right? Or the best barber business, right? Whatever it is. You might want to create the best business, and your motivators around that is to be the best at what you do. And to have a business that's built on Islamic values and principles in whatever direction you go in. You do that and go in that direction, I guarantee you money will come. Obviously, you have to observe some of the basic fundamentals of running a business.
Yeah.
That comes secondary. Your purpose and vision comes first.
Okay.
And your purpose can't be to make money. Because if your purpose is to make money, then it's going to be short.
Okay. SubhanAllah, that's very interesting. On the topic of making money, you mentioned it before, and I'm pretty sure this is the majority, like public opinion, is that a business is to make money. But you mentioned that, you know, it has a lot more than that. Could you give us a bit of a rundown about the realities of it? Maybe not just the good things, the rainbows, but also the hardships and the challenges that come along with having a business.
Yeah. Look, I did some, well, I still do a lot of professional and personal development. And part of who's watched the movie Gladiator? Has anyone watched the movie Gladiator? 2 people? Too young to watch it? 3 people? All right. Does anyone know what a gladiator is? Who knows what a gladiator is? Put your hand up if you know. Put up high. Let me see. What's a gladiator? Who can tell me what a gladiator is?
The guy who fights in the Colosseum.
Yeah. And who does he fight? And what does he do?
Those big people.
Animals and humans and big strong people.
They fight for entertainment. Like they fight anything like.
That's in that context. But a gladiator, right, is someone that fights to the death, right? And he's always in fight mode. So I did a personal development. Why I'm asking this question is, and why I'm seeing what you guys understand from the word gladiator, is because I did a personal development course once, and the guy that was the facilitator and the organizer, his name's Tony Robbins, and I don't know if any of you guys have researched him, but he's one of the leading business coaches in the world, okay? And he describes business owners as gladiators, because as a business owner, you have to take on everything that comes your way. The market forces, pandemics, right? We've just had a pandemic. I can tell you one thing's for sure. When Eamon, my business partner, and I set up a business, we never thought we'd have to navigate a business or lead a business through a pandemic, like COVID, where our industry would be shut down, where material supply, where you couldn't get material supply into the business, where people were becoming infectious with a disease that could not come out to work on site. So as a gladiator, you have to manage all of these issues coming at you from all different directions all the time. And you have to work on how do you become a person that's always willing to be in a growth mindset. So every time something happens, or if you try something and it doesn't work, I'm going to try something else. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to try something different. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to try something different again. So a gladiator is also resilient and perseveres and does not give up. So having a business, when you talk about the rainbow is great, the other side is that there's a lot of effort. And that's why your purpose is very important. Because the only thing that keeps you in it is the purpose. The only thing that keeps you in it for long term is your actual purpose and how aligned you are with your purpose. So business is great and it sounds great, and you might see a lot of business owners driving nice cars, right? Living in fancy houses, and eating in fancy places, the reality is there is hours and hours of thinking, of sweat, blood and tears to get you there. And above all that is an ability to be open-minded. I was talking to Riyadh earlier about having the ability to look in the mirror. So we all look in the mirror, right, to have a look at what our eyebrows are doing. For some of us that have hair, what our hair looks like, right? For our clothes, do our clothes look nice? You know, do I have something on? Do I need to wash my face or trim my beard? But that's not what I mean when I say look in the mirror. Look in the mirror to see the truth of what is actually happening in your life, in your business. If you can do that, then you'll be a successful business owner. And if you can be honest with yourself in doing that, then you can become a successful business owner. If you can't do that and you just blame people around you for things that happen, then you can't be a successful business owner. Because it's always going to be, I didn't have enough time to do it, or I didn't have enough money, or it was someone else's fault, didn't do their job properly, that's why we ended up where we are today. Or we had a COVID pandemic, it rained too much, it was too hot. Right? So you'll always look for an excuse as to why your business is not doing well. In reality, and when you do the research, and I'm not telling you this, I didn't create this line of thought or this school of thought. This is something that's well documented and you can all read about it. When a business does not do well, it's because the owner of the business is not doing well. A business's success or growth, there is a direct link with your own personal success and growth. Now, what does your personal success look like? It looks like your spirituality. Do you have a relationship with your Creator? Your physiology, how healthy are you? Your mindset, are you in a growth mindset, or are you always in a growth mindset and in true responsibility, like being responsible for everything that's happening around you? Or are you looking to blame Riyadh and Firas and Arif and the next person in the room about what's happening, instead of just looking in that mirror and saying, I made that decision. I made the decision because I'm the business owner. So ultimately, the decision lies with me. This outcome lies with me. What am I going to do differently next time to have a different result? You need to be able to have that mindset. Otherwise, you'll get stuck and you'll become emotional, and businesses don't survive well in emotional environments.
Okay, that's really good. It teaches us all, actually, the things that we need to have personally to be able to actually establish a business if we wanted to do so. Yes. Which brings me on to the next question. Is business for everyone? Is it something that everyone should pursue or needs to pursue? And for those people that it is, if it is for a select few, what are some of the sacrifices that come along with running a business or establishing a business in the first place?
Look, I think that's a good question, Riyadh. In terms of is business for everyone, if we look at statistics and facts, it would say no.
Yeah.
Because not everyone's in business. There are people that are in business. There are people that are not in business, that are part of teams that are also very successful. There are people that are in business that just want to be an accountant. They never want to be the CFO, the chief financial officer of a business. They just want to be the business accountant. And that's okay too. Because in life, people have different risk appetites. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created all of us with a different inclination. Some of us are conscientious natured people. Some of us are steady type people. We're just steady. We don't like too much change and excitement.
Yeah.
Right? Some of us are drivers. We just want to get out there and just go, keep high achievers, push. Some of us are influencers. They can give a khutbah and get everyone crying. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all of us in these different ways. And some of us decide to study that and understand how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created me. Am I a driver and an influencer? Am I just a driver? Am I a conscientious person and a driver? Or am I naturally a particular way, and then have I evolved through my environment to be another way? So a lot of people are not interested or don't take the time in understanding that about themselves, and then decide that business is never a thing for them. And there's something called risk and an appetite. We always associate appetite with food. We're hungry, I have an appetite, I'm hungry, right? Are you hungry? No, I don't have an appetite, I don't want to eat. But in business, we talk about something called a risk appetite. So some people just don't have a risk appetite. And for them, there is too much uncertainty around going into business about where's my food going to come from the next day if I go broke, right? And there's too much uncertainty around that. So they decide to stay away from it and to stay in a more of a certain environment where I can go to work every day. Someone else has to worry about the cash flow of the business. Someone else has to worry about the profit and loss. I'm going to do my bit to make sure the business is successful, but I'm only going to do my bit.
Yep.
I'm not going to have to worry about all parts of the business. So if we come back to the question, statistics would say business is not for everyone. If you ask me, I'm a optimistic kind of guy,
Yep.
and I think everyone can be in business if they want to be.
Okay.
You know, everyone can set up a lemonade store in front of their house and sell lemonade.
Yeah.
So I believe everyone has the ability, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created all of us with an opportunity to be in some type of business at some level. But it's okay if you're not, because you can contribute and you can add value in other environments as being a part of a team.
Okay. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because that was pretty much going to be the segue into the next question. There's just a bottle there.
Yeah, sorry.
No, all good.
I thought I still had some water in my other bottle.
All good. So you said that business isn't for everyone, but you also said that even though, and that's okay, and I think that part is important, because today we have a lot of push from social media. You know, everyone's in business. Every YouTube video you open has an ad about this successful businessman. So I think that message that it's okay if you're not, and that you can still provide value as part of a team is very important. But the next question that I want to ask you is, for both sides, for those who want to go into business, and inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants them success, and for those who don't, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants them success in that field, how can they both provide value back, not just to the community at large, but specifically I want your perspective on the Islamic community. If I'm in business, or if I'm an engineer, if I'm part of a team, or if I'm the leader, how can I provide value back to the Muslim community? You know, I'm not necessarily a sheikh. If I'm a business owner, am I really going to provide value to the Muslim community?
Absolutely. I think the value proposition is massive with any human. I think any human that is aligned to their community, to their faith, to their surrounding, can always add value in the workplace, in the association field, in the community generally. They can always add value. I think the journey that I can reflect on, my personal journey. One of the biggest motivators for me to continue to grow the business, and I think I was going to touch on this earlier, and I said we'll wait till later, is about contribution. Okay. So, because someone asked me 3 years ago, one of my employees said, look, we're going okay, the business is turning over a good amount of money, we're making profit, you seem to be sorted out, yourself and your business partner, we're all on good wages, things are going well, why do you want to keep growing the business? I said to him, because the more that we can create, the more that we can give. So the more we create, the more we can give. And that's the intrinsic motivator to keep growing. So what does that mean? What does giving mean? I mean, I have a passion for education, and same as my business partner and the group of people that I work with. We have a passion for orphans. We have a passion for anything that promotes the development, the personal development of the youth. So the more we grow our business, the more we can contribute. And by contributing, you're adding value. So we can add value in many ways. You can add value by providing donations. You can add value by having these types of talks. We add value through our cadetship and our apprenticeship program, where we bring people into our cadetship and apprenticeship program. We're adding value as a business founded by Muslims, where our practices in our business are based on Islamic values. So all of the non-Muslims working in our business get to touch and be intimate with what Islamic values look like. You know, we don't have alcohol at our events, whereas all other events have alcohol. So people that come into our environment say, well, how's that ever going to, I've always ever gone to that type of event with alcohol. How is it going to work without alcohol? So they come to our events and they see it work without alcohol. So it's a form of dawah. So again, you're adding more value. So the value proposition is infinite. And I believe it's exponentially infinite, if I'm going to use some mathematical jargon, right? If there is such thing, right? Let's just say infinite.
Yeah.
As a business owner, it's absolutely infinite. And I think as a non-business owner or just being as a part of a team in a company somewhere in the world, you have a massive opportunity as an individual to create value. You know, if you just look at the upholding your Islamic values in any workplace, what that forms in terms of dawah. Like I know people that are in our business that are working in pods, right? We call our project teams pods. So they got a project manager, a contracts administrator, a site manager, a site supervisor, a cadet, a project engineer, labourers, right? They're in this pod, and there might be 10 of them, and 3 might be Muslim, or 1 might be Muslim, and 9 might be non-Muslim. But that Muslim stops and prays. So the other 9 ask him, why are you praying? So that Muslim fasts. We have a Ramadan iftar, where we bring our team together as a business, talking about value, right? They're starting to understand what's Ramadan. What are the virtues of Ramadan? So even the non-Muslims that we can are in our circle of influence, we can add the value of helping them understand why Ramadan is important to us as Muslims, and we share a meal together. You know, so there's a lot of value that you can bring, and not just it goes beyond the Islamic world. The value you bring to society, the value you bring to humanity. Through your business, you can do all that. And especially if your businesses are underpinned, or your behavior in any workplace as an employee is underpinned by your Islamic values, the value proposition is infinite.
Alhamdulillah. I think on our end, that pretty much wraps it up. And I just want to just reaffirm some points that you mentioned, or summarize some points that you mentioned, that it's okay for us not to go into business. And just because we are not in the, let's say, in the same direction as the current trend, let's say, I can still be adding value to my Muslim community and the larger community if I were to uphold my Islamic values, and if I were to push myself to excel at whatever it is that I'm doing. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for that. We do have some questions, actually one anonymous question. By the way, reminder for everyone that if you do have any anonymous questions that you're too shy to ask personally, you can just scan the QR code, send your question through, and then I'll ask it. Alternatively, after this one question that I have, which is anonymous, it will just be an open Q&A. So for anyone who has any questions regarding engineering, regarding business, or perhaps it could be just regarding his personal experience, whatever he's willing to share, of course, you're more than welcome to put your hand up. So the first one is just, it's specific to your industry. What's the difference between a builder and a construction manager and a project manager? So you've got 3, builder, construction, and project manager.
That's a good question. So a builder is generally someone that takes a set of drawings and delivers a final product.
Okay.
So what does that mean? If we're talking construction terms, a builder will take a set of drawings for a house, I'll keep it simple, or a building, or a bridge, or a tunnel under the harbour, or whatever, and we'll build the project. So we'll take the project from drawings, we'll deal with authorities, with consultants, with subcontractors, with suppliers, and deliver a final product and hand the keys over to its owner. Okay. That's a builder. A project manager is someone that works specifically on the project, that takes care of mainly 4 functions, 4 portfolios, right? The cost, so they manage the budget. Okay. The time, they take care of the time. The quality, they make sure it's all being built to Australian standards and designed to Australian standards, and the building code of Australia, and the safety.
Okay.
Because as any project, there are a lot of hazards. In construction sites, there are a lot of deaths. So a project manager has to uphold all of the company's protocols and policies, and systems to make sure that, to do everything they can in their power, that everyone goes home healthy and safe. So they're the 4 main functions that the project manager takes care of on a project.
Okay.
Now the construction manager will manage multiple project managers on multiple projects.
Okay. So it's like one step
Yeah,
higher.
so he's one step up. So the builder is the whole company.
Yep.
Right? So if you look at Binna, our business is Binna. Binna is a builder. That's our core business. We employ project managers, one project manager for each project.
Okay.
And if it's a small project, one project manager might be able to do 2. If it's a big project, you might need 2 project managers on one project. But then we have a construction manager that supports the project managers to make sure that they're delivering each of their projects on budget, on time, to the right quality, and safely.
Okay. All right, beautiful. I think that clarifies it. Another anonymous question. What are the guidelines that have to be followed when starting a business, and who do you answer to when you make a mistake? That's pretty interesting.
The mirror. You answer to yourself. Basically, the numbers of the business is who you answer to, right? I'll come back to the first question of, I think it was the fund.
The guidelines that you need to follow to start a business.
Yeah. Basically, there are the official guidelines, whereas you need a constitution, a shareholding agreement, register with ASIC, get your ABN. So they're the original. They're the guidelines that you have to have. It's got to be a proprietary limited company. They're the technical stuff that you have to do. I think when you look at business fundamentals, I call them, maybe not guidelines. You have to have a budget. You have to have a cash flow. You have to have a profit and loss. And you have to understand the processes of what you're actually delivering. And you have to employ the right people. So when you talk about guidelines, I think the guidelines, the technical guidelines are written for you. You have to follow the law in terms of establishing a business. I think when you're talking about the framework or the fundamentals of setting up a business, you have to start with a vision. What's your purpose? What's your vision? What are your goals? Creating a plan, right? And having a budget to support all that, and maintaining a cash flow, and then you're on your way.
Okay. I think that's pretty wholesome, let's say.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it with the anonymous questions. So anyone here would like to ask any question, just put your hand up and you can begin your questioning.
Does engineering include a lot of homework?
You're asking him, not me.
Say that again.
Does engineering include a lot of homework?
If you become a structural engineer, you can decide to do concrete structures, and you can decide to become a formwork engineer, design formwork systems. So engineering doesn't necessarily, in its professional sense, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a formwork carpenter. Because if you want to be a formwork carpenter, you don't need to be an engineer. You can do a trade through TAFE. If you want to design formwork systems and concrete structures, then you need to be an engineer.
So basically engineering is more plans.
Say that again.
So basically engineering is more plans and design.
Engineering is the design and the planning. Yes, that's correct. The formworking side is the actual implementation. It's the execution.
Good.
So if you want to use your brains, do engineering. If you want to use your muscles, do formwork.
There you go. Another question came in. How do we balance or strike a balance between managing our careers and managing our religion and our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
I think everything has to be in balance. And something that I was guilty of in the early stages of my business journey was I sacrificed my health and my spirituality for my business, which is wrong. So that's something that we've learnt through our business journey and corrected in the last 6 to 7 years, and are still correcting, and will continue to correcting, because you can always continue to improve that. But you always need to stay in balance. I believe through planning, you can create the balance. So something that we learned 6 to 7 years ago was to create a plan, but the first thing you put in your plan are your non-negotiables.
Okay.
Like your prayer time. Like how much time do you want to give to studying? How much time do you want to give to Quran, for example? How much time do you, what are your work hours? When do you want to start work? When do you want to finish work? Now, in a business, that will fluctuate, but you need to start with a foundation, with a plan. When you do that, then you keep everything in focus, because a plan starts with setting your goals. So if you have spiritual goals, like for example, this year I want to learn 2 ajza' from the Quran, or 1 juz' from the Quran. Or my goal is every Friday I must do the Friday Friday prayer in congregation. I want to do Fajr. You have to have all those goals in your plan, and they need to make their way into your weekly planner.
So planning is very important.
Absolutely, it's the fundamental. If you're going back to business guidelines, the other question, your planning is before your budgeting.
Okay.
So before you even set a budget, you do your plan, because one of your goals in your plan is to set a budget, right? So the planning comes first.
Okay.
So I think to answer that question, how you create that balance, that work-life balance, is to plan it out and make sure you give everything its right.
Okay. Which is pretty much an Islamic principle, like give
Yes.
everything its due right, and then inshallah you'll be able to achieve in all of them.
Yes, absolutely.
So another question, all right, now they're coming in. So I want to study something like medicine, and I'm assuming here they're using medicine because it's a bit intense. So I want to study something like medicine, and I still have an ambition for running business aligned with my interests and skill. Should I pursue it?
Of course. There are a lot of doctors that are also entrepreneurs, that are also business owners.
Okay.
That own medical centers. I know a good doctor friend of mine, I won't use his name, he might not want me to share, a local guy in Sydney who is a doctor but now has multiple medical centers, I think he's about to be involved in a private hospital venture. So they started off practicing medicine, but their risk appetite is greater than just having their own surgery or working in a medical center. They've actually gone out and opened up multiple medical centers, and now are with a group of doctors looking at opening up a private hospital. So just because you go into medicine, it doesn't limit you from going into business ownership.
Even as a student?
What, starting as a student?
Yeah, so let's say I'm in university now studying my medical degree, and I want to also start a business on the side.
That's a function of time.
Okay.
You just need to plan it out and work out how much time do I need to give to my studies so that I can get through my degree, if that's important to me, and how much time do I need to give to my business. And numbers don't lie. There's only 24 hours in a day.
Okay.
And I would say you can absolutely do it if you're resourceful.
Okay.
So if you're resourceful and you come from a place of abundance, which we are taught to do Islamically, always Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us everything, everything in abundance. We just need to know how to be resourceful and use it properly.
Okay, beautiful. So the short answer is yes, if you are to properly plan it and apply. Another one is, you mentioned risk appetite. Can someone have no risk appetite but still succeed within their business, or is it ideal to have a risk appetite within the business?
No, risk appetite is an individual thing. Every person will have a different risk appetite.
Yeah.
So you might your risk appetite, like if this was our scale, right? Your risk appetite might be here in your business, but you'll take your business, say, to 10 million turnover, for example, per annum. But then, because as the business grows, you have to employ more people. You have to have more cash. The budgets get bigger to manage. The numbers are bigger. All of your limiting beliefs that you've grown up with as a kid start to come in. And if you don't know how to turn them into empowering beliefs, they start to scare you. and keep you where you are. So your risk appetites, if it's here, you can still have your business. You could be a tobacconist, turning over $1 million a year, and that's where you are, and that's where you're comfortable. You might decide that your risk appetite is here at $10 million a year. It might be at 100 million. It might be at $1 billion. It might be, it doesn't matter. The number's irrelevant. I'm happy to keep growing this business because the end result, what we're manufacturing, what we're producing, the service we're providing, whatever the type of business it is doing well. And the community and the world is embracing it. And you're making money over here on the side, right? So I think risk appetite, I wouldn't get hung up on it because it's an internal thing for each person.
Okay.
And if you're, depending on where it is for you, is how far your business will grow.
All right, beautiful. Jazakumullahu khairah. Thank you very much, all of you, for your attendance. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. And also, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward Brother Khalil for attending and for answering all these questions. Wa iyyakum.